What up, YouTube? Long time since I made a video, but I felt that this was absolutely imperative that I made this. This video is an educational video. It won't have any reptiles, unfortunately, but it is with regard to reptiles. So, what I wanted to address was the issue of whether or not reptiles are animals. This might seem intuitive to most people, so at this point you can go ahead and change the video because you're an educated individual. However, there are people in this world that really, and I don't mean to say educated as in they're better than you. I'm kind of coming from a little bit of an angry place because a person called me out. But I want to make this video to try to uproot what this individual said with regard to reptiles not being animals. So this individual says reptiles are reptiles, amphibians are amphibians, mammals are mammals. This is what this person believes on a fundamental level. It goes by the name, it's a gentleman who goes by the screen name of Imaginary Farms. And he, after I posted a comment on Snake Bites TV, one of the videos that they put up where Brian Barczyk, or however you say his name, who knows, Brian was holding an olive python and the snake bit him on the hand. And so, Brian clearly shows his mastery of the snake species by getting this animal to, let go and safely put it back in its cage with doing, very minimal amounts of damage. So, I mean, it was really a phenomenal video, and I would say go ahead and check it out. I'll put it in the link, below. But I said, gosh, it's unbelievable that Brian can handle these animals so well, and it's really phenomenal work that he's done. And somewhere along the line, somebody posts something to the extent of, these animals don't show any sort of compassion. So what's the point? Why do you have a pet that doesn't care for you? Why should you care for it? And so I posted, that a lot of reptile keepers get reptiles because they're fascinated in their nature, and they want to, really fundamentally understand how they work. These creatures are so fundamentally misunderstood. So, I wanted to post on there and say, just because the animal doesn't give you compassion, it doesn't reciprocate the compassion that you give towards it, it doesn't mean that it's any less worth, or that it's, it's subordinate in one way or another. It's just completely different nature. And us as reptile keepers like to have some form of control of these very, very what seem to be uncontrollable organisms. I mean, maybe call us control freaks, maybe call us manipulators of nature or whatever, but the fundamental root behind people wanting to care for these sorts of animals is because they're so misunderstood, and we're so passionate about understanding something that the majority of people, at least I feel, don't understand. That's my opinion about it. I think that's why I've always had reptiles. I've always had a desire to really fundamentally understand how they live and move about their world and navigate, their territory, or whatever you want to call it. So I've just always been very fascinated by their nature. And so, I posted things of that nature, and people said, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. And I said, in one of my comments, these animals, reptiles being animals, and this guy who I mentioned earlier, Imaginary Farms, chimes in and says, no, you got it all wrong. Reptiles are not, in all caps, animals. And, that kind of frustrated me. So I said, look, you haven't learned as much as you should have, in your high school biology course. This is very basic stuff. I mean, if you're going to say that reptiles aren't animals, you must not have attended all of your high school biology lectures. It's very simple. So I want to back up. I want to address the fact that this Imaginary Farms individual, who actually claims to be Harvard-educated bio major himself, he says, I am the one who's not ignorant. I'm the one who understands that reptiles are not animals. say, okay, that's fine, whatever. And so I posted a couple of things about, them being within the domain eukarya, where within the domain eukarya has everything to do with, cells that have a nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. So you got, the ribosomes, the endoplasmic reticulum, rough and soft. You have, mitochondria, all these sorts of different organelles that are integral in DNA to protein. That the output of genes from gene to protein, gene to amino acid to protein, right? So there are all these membrane-bound organelles within the domain, or within the eukaryotic cell. Right? And so it turns out that when you look at the cellular chemistry of reptiles, you see membrane-bound organelles, which would lead you to believe, okay, well, if they have membrane-bound organelles, they must be within the domain eukarya, and therefore within the kingdom Animalia. But, coming from me, the kid that goes to, UC Berkeley, that doesn't mean enough. That's not enough. So I wanted to get a video, I wanted to recite something that was written directly from a doctor. Let me go to the page here. Dr. Jim Hanken. Dr. Jim Hanken is affiliated with the Museum of Comparative Zoology at Harvard University. Interestingly enough, Mr. Imaginary Farms. You go to Harvard University, according to you, and you're a bio major at Harvard University, according to you. So I wanted to read quickly what Dr. Jim Hanken had to say about how we classify reptiles. It's very simple. I don't mean to be rude or, antagonize anybody. I just find it interesting that an individual can claim he's a bio major at Harvard and still believe that reptiles aren't animals. So here's what Dr. Jim Hanken says. Dr. Jim Hanken says, reptiles are part of the domain eukarya, which include all organisms. Oh, this is a quote. This is a direct quote. I'm going to start over real quick. Dr. Jim Hanken says, reptiles are part of the domain eukarya, which includes all organisms that have cells with a nucleus. They are included within the kingdom Animalia, with other organisms that are multicellular, ingest food, have cells that lack cell walls. Cell walls are present in plant cells. Further classification places them in the phylum Chordata. Chordates have a nerve cord. We've got one too. Chordates have a nerve cord running along the lengths of their backs. It's the same thing as a spinal cord. As chordates with backbones, they are placed in the subphylum Vertebrata. Reptiles form the class Reptilia. There are 4 existing orders of reptiles, including turtles, crocodiles, and alligators, lizards, and snakes. And tuataras. I didn't even know that. I learned that right there. Dr. Hanken focused on comparisons between members in the class that include lizards and snakes, showing evidence that snakes evolved from lizards. Recent advances in classification methods have determined that birds arose from a group of dinosaurs. As a result, they will likely be reclassified within the order Reptiles. Within the order of reptiles. Okay, birds are avian reptiles. You have to understand that too. That might be hard for you to believe, but I mean, if you look at the foot of a chicken, it looks exactly like that of, a velociraptor. I mean, you look at the bone structure of a chicken, you see the exact same thing as a velociraptor, essentially. So, and not only that, you can see scales. I mean, chicken feet have scales on them. I mean, they're still definitely very, very close to reptiles. The difference is the number of chambers within the heart that allows for a for hot-blooded. So you have I can't remember right now the exact terminology, but you have, the cold-blooded and hot-blooded, exothermal and endothermal, I do believe. Endothermal has to do with your body through cellular respiration and whatnot, being able to heat yourself. And exothermal is just, you're as hot as your surroundings, being reptiles. So, okay, I digressed a little bit, but what I want to really make sure of is that people have an understanding that reptiles are animals. We can't call them anything else. I mean, when you look at them in terms of their phylogeny, they have so many components that are characterized within the kingdom Animalia and the domain Eukarya. So I want to implore you to take more time and understand the three domain system and the five kingdom system. Five kingdom system is outdated, however, it is relatively relevant. And the three domain system is currently accepted by most scientists. So, I know this video was kind of chock-a-block with a bunch of information and not very fun, but I feel like it is of the utmost importance to make sure that there is no misunderstanding. Reptiles are animals, even insects. Even insects. Oh, and also, in case if you didn't know, insects, spiders don't fall under insects. They're arachnids. So, that might be kind of a trip to you as well. But, at any rate, thank you, and hope you learned something. Have a good one, guys.